Hey guys, it is the holiday baking season, so I thought I'd bring you a video about tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, and I already have a video on my channel, but it was back from 2022, and not a ton of people have saw it, and I have a lot of new subscribers that like to bake, so I thought I would repost that video, but add in some extra tips and tricks and commentary to the video that I haven't watched in a really long time. So without further ado, here is my holiday baking tips video from December 2022. Hey guys, coming at you today with a little video that I thought about because someone left me a comment asking me this question, and I forget that I have a lot of knowledge in efficiency in baking and cooking and stuff like that, and I don't really think about those things. Like, one of the question was like, if I bake all day, like my kitchen is a disaster, like do you have any tips or tricks to like make it more efficient and less cleanup at the end of the day and stuff like that? And at first I thought, oh, I don't really have any. And then I started thinking about it. And I actually did have multiple jobs that I've had in the past. I was the only person in the kitchen. I did my own dishes. And a lot of the places didn't even have a dishwasher because they were small businesses or small, startup mom and pop shops or, self-owned bakeries, like stuff like that. So I have learned ways to minimize cleanup and stuff like that. So I thought I would share those with you since we're in the midst of the baking season right now and everybody is baking up a storm. So I thought I'd share those with you. So besides cleanup, I figured I'd start with efficiency in the kitchen with baking. I try to teach this in a lot of my videos, which is why a lot of my videos are longer, because I kind of try and tell you the order of operations of how things should be done so that you're wasting less time in the kitchen. Like whipping your butter and sweetener while you're measuring out your ingredients and you're getting your pan ready and you're preheating your oven and stuff like that. But also, if you're baking multiple things in a day, like for Thanksgiving, I baked a pumpkin pie and a cheesecake. So I had a pie pan and I had a springform pan that I was making things in, but they both baked at 350. So what I started with was my pie crust because that has to chill first. So you start with the things that have to chill. So I made my pie crust, I let it chill. Then you have to bake your cheesecake crust first before you make the cheesecake. So then after that, I did my graham cracker crust for my cheesecake and baked that. Then I rolled out my crust for my pumpkin cheesecake while that was baking and then cooling, because that can just sit on the back burner until whenever you're ready for it. So then you roll out your pumpkin pie crust. That has to chill while you're making your filling. Then you can make your pumpkin pie filling in your mixer. And then I make my cheesecake fillings a lot of times in my food processor. So a lot of times I don't do it on camera because I don't feel like bringing out my food processor. I'll just do it in my mixer. But if you're doing two things, one you need a mixer for, one you need a food processor for, you can kind of do them at the same time. So I was whisking up my sweetener and pumpkin puree that has to whip for a while I was whipping my cream cheese and sweetener together in the food processor. So I was kind of making two fillings at once. And then at the end, you make both of them. You put them in your crusts and your pie pan, and they bake at 350. Now you do kind of have to keep an eye. Obviously, if you're baking two things at once, you got to kind of keep track in your head, like, okay, well, I got to turn this one because the pumpkin pie takes a lot longer to bake than a cheesecake does. And also, the cheesecake, it's also a toss-up, like, because I like to turn my oven off for my cheesecake and let it sit in there so that it doesn't crack. But if you're putting toppings on it and stuff, it doesn't really matter. You can always fix cracks on cheesecakes. So I forego that for efficiency. So the pie has to bake longer, so I got to turn my cheesecake a little bit earlier. So I set it for the low temperature, or the low time, which most cheesecakes are like 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how thick you're making it. So you set it for 20, but then you got to bake your pumpkin pie for 15 more minutes and then turn that. So it's kind of a little bit of math you got to do in your head. And also opening up the oven multiple times while you're baking might add some time onto your baked goods. But you're getting it all done at once, and you pull it out, and I think after I did the cheesecake, I pulled the cheesecake out and put it on the top of my stove and let my pumpkin pie keep cooking. And then, so that your pumpkin pie doesn't crack, you can also do the same trick. So, when the pumpkin pie was done, I turned off the oven, put my cheesecake back in, and just let them both chill in there until they were like kind of room temperature, and then threw them into the refrigerator. So that's one way to make it kind of efficient while baking. Also, like if you're doing something that needs to chill and then you're making a bunch of cookie dough. You know, most cookie dough can either sit on the counter or sit in the refrigerator, depending on the recipe. So you can make all this stuff, reuse your bowls over and over again, because you don't need to soap and wash and rinse all your stuff every time you make a recipe. If anything, you just want to be careful with like extracts. Like you don't want to use the same spoon straight from peppermint to almond extract. Things like that. That matters. Most other stuff doesn't. You can do a quick wipe out on a lot of doughs as long as they're not like super sticky. You can reuse your bowls over and over again for different recipes as you're baking throughout the day. You don't have to wash every bowl every time. Same thing with your measuring spoons. You can give them a rinse and a wipe with a paper towel to make sure they're not wet, and you're good to go. So when I start my day with baking, I always do like an order of operations for my day. That is going to help you a lot. Like figure out what you can do when, what needs to chill, what you can bake. If you're chilling something and you're making a cake, which you're making the batter and baking it right away, do the thing that has to chill first, bake your cake, and then once the cake is baked, you can go and make whatever you're chilling. So it's all kind of planning your day out makes it a lot easier at the end of the day to do all your baking and get it done efficiently. Because being a baker, pastry chef, cook, anything, you can be good at it, but if you're not efficient at it, you're not going to get as far as other people in the industry. That's kind of why I got to where I was. I didn't go to school, like college, for culinary, but I ended up at a sous chef position, and then I was acting executive chef for a couple of months also. And I also have ran my own kitchens. It's just being efficient at being in the kitchen. So you learn these things along the way, and some people, they're great at cooking, but they cannot do that in their head and be efficient on a line, which is really fast paced, which I don't like being on the line. I do and I don't. It's like kind of an adrenaline rush and like camaraderie with your peeps, and I do kind of miss working with Adam on the line every now and then, but it is stressful. And just getting your butt kicked every night, you know, with orders, it's something I'm glad is in my past. But long story short, it comes with practice. But being a home baker, obviously you're not under the stress of, I gotta get this out right now. So it's all just tips to help you figure out the best way to get things done so that your kitchen isn't a disaster at the end of the day. So reusing bowls, reusing measuring spoons, measuring cups, stuff like that. Measuring on a scale keeps a lot of that down. You don't need to use the measuring cups. I still use measuring spoons. You don't have to. A teaspoon is usually 4 grams, but sometimes it's not because some things are lighter than others. So that's why I use teaspoons and tablespoons still for like smaller measurements. But weighing things on a scale makes it much easier. When you make something to completion, if you gotta throw it in the fridge, throw it in the fridge. If you want to reuse your mixing bowl, put it into another bowl, wash your mixing bowl, make your next thing. If you have batters that you're making, like if I'm doing the cheesecake in the food processor, I am making sure when I scrape that food processor out, I am scraping every last bit of batter out of that bowl, off the blade, off the spatula, whatever, because the less stuff that's on your mixers and your bowls and your food processor, the less it's going to take to clean them. So, and as I go, if I'm not going to be reusing something right away and it's really dirty, I soak it. I run the water as I'm doing something else. You know, I fill that bowl up while I'm measuring out the next ingredient, you know, something like that. I always soak whatever I'm not going to be using right away that's really dirty. And then don't put in your measuring spoons into that dirty bowl. Don't put, you know, something that's not really dirty into something that's super dirty, because then you have to really wash it. You can just rinse your measuring spoons. You can rinse your spatulas and give them a wipe real quick, like if they have batter on them. you don't have to soak them in the bowl with everything. You just have it ready to go for the next recipe. And I think the last tip is going to be clean as you go, put away as you go. So like I was making a bunch of different test recipes the other day, and if you're using a bunch of different extracts for different things, make sure you put the caps on and put them away after you're done. Or at least get them out of the way and organized so that when cleanup does come, you can just throw them back where they go. Depending on how big your kitchen is, if your kitchen's really big, you tend to leave things out and it makes the process harder to clean up. I have a small kitchen, so I try not to keep stuff out because it gets too cluttered. So if I pull something out and use it and I know I'm not going to need it for another recipe, I close it up and put it away. That way at the end, I don't have a ton of stuff all over every surface of my kitchen that I have to clean up. Reusing pans too, like baking pans and stuff like that. Like if you're using parchment paper, just take the parchment paper off, leave the pan there. If you're going to do another different kind of cookie, whatever, it'll be there ready to go. So stuff like that. I think that's about it for my baking tips. Biggest thing, just keep yourself organized. Put things away as you go. Clean as you go is a big one. That was really big in the restaurant. You don't keep your station dirty. It's always clean as you go, because at the end of the day, it's easier to clean up. Because there was no such thing in the kitchen as you leave before anything's, cleaned up. Like, you clean everything. You wipe every surface down. You do the floors every night. Does that always happen at home? No. But that's where I learned my efficiency from, is just working in kitchens my whole life. I hope this helps you guys in some way for your season of baking all your delicious baked goods and cookies this year. And I hope my recipes help you. I'll put up a playlist right here of all my favorite keto holiday recipes. I hope you guys have an awesome Christmas. I hope the next update video will be a baby. I'm still only 4 days away from the due date now, December 10th. So hopefully that'll be the next video. If not, it'll probably be a bakery tour, because hopefully the bakery will be pretty much set and ready to go. So, hope to see you guys soon, and happy holiday keto baking. Bye, guys. Okay, well, that was fun to watch back after all these years. I was wondering if I was going to mention it, the fact that I was 40 weeks pregnant, pretty much. And I was really out of breath in the beginning of that video, so I probably should have mentioned it ahead of time because I sounded really out of breath, like I'd been running a marathon. But van was taking up a lot of room at the end, and it was getting hard to catch my breath. But a lot of good tips and tricks in that video, and I have a few more to add to that. But like I mentioned in one of my videos, and a couple people mentioned it in the comments saying that they liked that tip, was having a set of dry measuring spoons and a set of wet measuring spoons so that you can use them throughout the day of baking. Ooh, it's like sleeting outside. Yuck. And nowadays I don't usually use a lot of different extracts. Usually they're complementary to each other. So like vanilla, my Saturday recipe, I'll be using maple extract, or like almond and stuff like that. But for peppermint, I am working on a peppermint recipe. I just grab like a one-off measuring spoon to measure the peppermint extract so I don't have to wash my wet measuring spoons. And the dry measuring spoons, you can just keep using over and over again. Except for the problem I'm having now is with cinnamon and pumpkin spice in a bunch of recipes, so I have to keep wiping out my dry measuring spoons. But still really helpful throughout the day to have two sets if you're doing a lot of baking in one day. Another thing is having dry ingredients in a bowl. I don't wash it afterwards. Like if it's like a similar kind of recipe, I'll just keep my dry ingredient bowl to the side if I'm gonna do more like the same recipe. Usually keep one for like chocolate recipes and one for like regular unflavored or vanilla, stuff like that. So you definitely don't have to wash your dry bowls and stuff if you're using the same similar ingredients. And the nice thing with my recipes is most of them are the same ingredients, just in different ratios. So definitely saves you a little bit of time with dishes if you're just reusing those. Along with the dry ingredient bowls, I have a lot of bowls. So if I know I have a really busy baking day ahead of me and I have a little bit of time at the end of another day and I don't have time to like make another recipe, I will take the time to measure out the dry ingredients for the recipes for the next day. and that saves you a ton of time. I just keep them in the bowls a lot of times. Sometimes I'll use my quart containers, which are a great tool to have in the kitchen if you bake a lot, because you can store things in these quart containers. You can even measure out your eggs and if you need buttermilk and stuff like that, and put them in containers, label the tops with a Sharpie, and you can have them for the next day. Because that's a lot of the time that you take is prepping the ingredients. And if you have them all done ahead of time, you get recipes done really fast. Another tip with pulling things out or measuring ahead of time is pulling out your butter the day ahead or even 2 days ahead is fine. I keep mine out all the time. I just keep swapping out, putting out 1 pound of butter at a time as I use butter. And then in the morning when I'm gonna bake, if I'm not getting down to the bakery right away, I'll go down there and just pull out my eggs, and if there's milk I'm using or cream cheese, to come to room temperature so that it's kind of ready to go when I get down there. So before you start your day, like before you have your coffee or anything, you can pull out your eggs or whatever that you're going to need for those recipes that day. Along with that is preheating your oven to warm up the kitchen and help warm up your ingredients. And it's really important for me right now because my oven isn't firing up every time. So like my bread will be ready to go in the oven and it's still preheating, and I have to, it's like not even heating. So I have to turn it off, turn it back on, and hope that it heats up in time. So it's always best to turn your oven on earlier rather than right on time to bake whatever you're baking. And you should never use your oven right after the beep goes off because it still needs to regulate the temperature. They say to wait at least 10 more minutes after that. So if you just do it earlier, you don't have to worry about that, and the oven will be ready to go. And only a few more tips and tricks. One, having a garbage can right next to you as you're making recipes. It saves you time and steps going to the garbage can, or if you don't want to pull the garbage can to you, you can use a garbage bowl. Just like Rachel Ray said, it is a time saver to have a garbage bowl on your counter for your eggshells and your butter wrappers and all that stuff. You end up wasting less time that way. And the last and final tip is if you're planning on baking a lot of specifically different cookies, you can definitely make the doughs. You can just freeze the doughs as they are in gallon freezer bags, or you can scoop, freeze flat on a sheet tray, and then put them into a gallon bag for storage for when you want to bake them. So you can either take them out of the freezer and put them in the fridge to defrost overnight, or you can, most of the time, bake them from frozen. But it is gonna vary the time it takes for the cookies to bake. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. You definitely have to experiment with your oven specifically because all ovens are widely different. But a lot of my blogs have directions in there to bake from frozen, or if I suggest to thaw them first and then bake them and stuff like that. I have blog posts for every single recipe except for maybe the early ones. But in those, I always pretty much reiterate everything that was in the video. And sometimes I add some other stuff in there if I learn stuff later. Because sometimes I shoot these videos weeks in advance and I'll continue to make the recipe or experiment on something else and figure out something else or realize something. And I'll put that in the blog post also. So if ever you have questions on my videos, you can always go to ketoupgrade.info and search for the recipe you're looking for. I think that's about it for this holiday baking tip video. I hope it helps you guys during this baking season. And if you don't feel like baking all my different recipes, I do have some options on my website to order for yourself. So I'll put my order link down in the pinned comment below. If you don't want to go through the hassle of making some cinnamon rolls or maple pecan sticky buns, don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link will be down in the description box below. I have lists of just about everything I own in the bakery and a lot of the stuff in my home kitchen in lists on my storefront. So check that out, especially for Black Friday deals and stuff like that. I'm sure some stuff will be on sale. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'll be back with many more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye, guys. Happy keto baking!